Cornhole Champions. I'm Zachary Oren Smith. I'm here with Amy Rivers. Iowa is a red state. When Republicans began talking about redrawing their maps in Texas to pick up congressional seats, I had some readers ask if our red state, a state that has Republicans in all 4 districts, would be interested in redistricting right here. My answer to them has always been that to what end, right?
To what end?
Yeah, to what end? Iowa Republicans, they have all the seats that they could want, but that may not always be true. On this show, we've been featuring conversations with people challenging the status quo up and down the ballot. Iowa's 2nd Congressional District covers Cedar Rapids, Dubuque, Waverly, Waterloo, and Grinnell. And it's been locked down by U.S. Representative Ashley Hinson since she took office in 2021. But there's an interesting primary field emerging around her. My conversation with State Representative Lindsay James and why she thinks she's the right choice, coming up on Cornhole Champions. Lindsay James, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. I feel like I'm still recovering from the state legislative session. Does that ever go away? You've had a couple more sessions than me.
Yes, never goes away.
Okay.
It was a session.
Do you have a routine for dealing with the shaking off the cobwebs?
Oh yes, absolutely. I dig in the ground and plant tomatoes. Like every other.
You grow things.
Yes. There's something about actually engaging in some beauty. And some beautiful things, because there's not a lot of that coming out of the state legislature right now.
But there's a lot of hope, and there's a lot. There are a lot of folks in the state that would like to see different things for Iowans. And we're talking today because you're launching your campaign to take on U.S. Representative Ashley Hinson in Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. You'll be in the Democratic primary. And I wanted to. I tried to begin these conversations, these introduction conversations, from the bottom. Why are you deciding to run? You've been in the Iowa Legislature. Was it 2018 or 2021? Which one was that? When did you get elected to that seat?
Yes, 2018.
2018.
Yes.
So you've been in for what, 7 years? I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about why you've decided that you're the right person to take on Hinson.
Sure. Well, it's pretty simple in my mind. This feels like the next faithful step. I have spent the last 7 years and even my career as a chaplain listening to everyday people. And because of the economic realities that Iowans are facing right now, they're being forced into making impossible choices just to get by in their lives. And so whether that they're grappling with realities like, do I pay for my rent, or do I pay for my life-saving medication? Do I pay this utility bill, or do I buy my child a new winter coat, right? These are the impossible kinds of choices that everyday working families here in Iowa are making, and they are being left behind in Washington. So this feels like, as I have been an advocate every single day in the Iowa legislature, the next faithful step to take this fight, because people in Washington need to hear from us as Iowans who are on the ground facing these realities every single day.
You mentioned impossible decisions, and as I was kind of going through some of your background, what's been written about you in the past, your work on insulin, trying to insulin access, is one that comes up time and time again. Do you want to talk a little bit about your work in that space?
Sure. Let me tell you, I met one of my constituents on his front porch, and he shared with me a story that just was utterly devastating. So he lived in a mobile home park in my district, and there were increasing rent hikes for the property in which his mobile home unit, which he owned, sat. And he was forced to make a decision about whether or not he would have to pay for increase in rent, so pay for his rent and keep his mobile home, or pay for his insulin and keep his foot.
Wow.
Right. That was the reality he was facing, right? Because that's obviously, a complication of diabetes is, he could possibly lose a limb based on, a lack of circulation and rationing insulin. So, right, this is an example of an impossible choice that someone in my district was facing. And so I, came to the legislature and worked really hard to advocate for insulin access, lowering the costs. And so I will be happy to tell you that I authored a bill with a Republican across the aisle and to cap the cost of insulin and to offer some emergency access to folks who needed insulin in an emergency situation. And we moved the bill. And then, of course, it was stopped by Republican leadership. And so every single year I came back with some form of advocacy and legislation around access to insulin, but also to lowering costs for prescription drugs in general. So again, impossible choices, right? Do I pay for a life-saving medication? Do I pay that healthcare bill? Or do I pay for my mortgage, right? These are the impossible decisions everyday Iowans are making.
In the Iowa legislature, you're dealing with part of your job, part of the work is trying to pursue your values in policy. And when you're having conversations with Republican colleagues, you're trying to get them to buy into something. And there's some part of this where diabetes isn't a red or blue county issue, right? I think it comes for so many of us. It's certainly come for my family. How does an issue that does feel like it has a natural constituency, has a kind of cross-party potential, like where does that conversation fall apart? How do you diagnose that kind of like where that rubber meets the road moment?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you my first day in the Iowa legislature, I was whisked around the rotunda. I was a brand new legislator. And I was whisked around the rotunda being introduced to lobbyists for this big corporation and that big corporation and the health insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. And I had this moment in the legislature where I was looking around and I thought to myself, where are the advocates for everyday Iowans? Where are the people who are fighting for my constituents who are struggling to afford insulin and rent, right? Where's the advocate for the mom who's grappling with a utility bill or a winter coat, right? Where are those advocates? And that's when I had a deepening sense of call in that moment that was me. I'm the advocate because the system is surely not advocating for them. And it's you are the advocate and us together are the advocates because Ashley Hinson is certainly not advocating for everyday folks. So I had a deepening sense of call in that moment, but really where all of the breakdown seems, to happen is around special interest dollars, lobby influence in the Iowa legislature, and I'm sure, in Washington, D.C., but especially with Hinson, right? She's certainly lost her way out there, no longer listening to everyday folks.
If she, as you say, has lost her way, I mean, she's done so to great effect. She's been a tremendous fundraiser for a House member. She's positioned herself really powerfully within the caucus. She's considered kind of one of the really an up and comer in not just Iowa politics, but in the U.S. House. I think with her last challenger, she raised something like $5 million for that race. That's a tremendous amount of money, even for a U.S. House race. And I wonder about how you're feeling about going up against potentially going up should you make it through the primary, which is not a foregone conclusion, but should you go up against her? I mean, taking on what is fundraising giant.
Yes, I am so ready and fired up to hold her accountable to the terrible policy decisions that she's made. I mean, this big, quote, beautiful bill was only big and beautiful for billionaires, right? And Iowans are not dumb. We can see through it. And she is a perfectly, maybe a perfectly polished politician, right? But Iowans don't want someone who is going to cater to every special interest and be blown about by whatever political wind. I am someone who has deep core convictions. Many of them are shaped by my faith. And what you see is what you get with me. I'm a redhead with a lot of heart and some things to say. and I'm going to say them and hold her accountable to the bad policy decisions that she's made and the moral failure that she has committed in passing these horrific bills.
Do you want to talk about a specific, when you say moral failure, like what exactly are you talking about? What has
Let's
been
just go
something
back to
that's
the
gone?
big, beautiful bill. 20,000 Iowans are about to lose their health care because of this, right? And you think about all of the impossible choices that families are making right now, and that without health care like Medicaid, 20,000 people are about to lose that. Without health care, one healthcare bill could cause them to experience financial ruin. I will tell you, Zach, I just had a conversation with my neighbor who told me recently that her 38-year-old daughter got a headache, walked into the hospital with a really horrible headache, and never walked out. She had brain cancer. It wasn't detected. It came on fast. She lost her life. We have raising cancer rates in the state of Iowa exponentially. We're the worst in the country for, the number of cases that are rising. And this story should not be happening, right? And we need families to have the kind of healthcare coverage to cover these horrific costs. And we need to address the healthcare deserts in our state and in this district, as well as the rising cancer rates, right? Instead, we see Ashley Hinson making decisions about financial relief for billionaires, corporate giveaways to big companies, right? And I really truly believe that as Iowans face these hard economic times, they'll start to realize that their life is not better off because of Ashley Hinson. In fact, it's worse off. And they need someone who is going to go in there with core convictions and faith to be able to say, I am not going to be blown about by political winds. I will fight for you and what matters most in your life and build a future for kids here in Iowa. So very, very much so excited to enter into that fight and to advocate for everyday people. And I am not afraid.
You've mentioned over a couple of times now your faith, your sense of call, the sense of call that brings you to this work. I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about kind of your faith and kind of how it plays into your kind of the political framework that you're working in.
That's one of my favorite topics. Thank you for asking. And I love to share it on the floor.
Let a pastor talk about their religion. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
all right.
yes. But I also love to share it on the floor of the Iowa House. And
yeah.
Another piece that I love is that there are folks with different faith commitments outside of the Christian commitment, and even atheist groups or humanitarians who support me because they love that I can call out, the inconsistency and the hypocrisy of those who claim certain Christian commitments and then seem to legislate dramatically against those commitments. And so, but to answer really your question, I've been shaped by the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? That's a story where someone who is beaten and bloodied on the side of the road in desperate need of help. And folks, the powerful, walk by. They look the other way. They walk by. That's exactly what Ashley Hinson is doing right now, walking by, looking the other way. And my faith compels me to step up and lend a hand. And that's a lot of the core conviction of what drives me to think about the least, the lost, the lonely, those who are pushed aside, everyday people who are facing job losses, food insecurity, rising childcare and housing costs, right? These are folks who are struggling just to give their kids what they deserve, right? A beautiful life. And how many grandparents have I talked to who have said, I am terrified that my grandkids are going to leave the state. And so we have to be fighting for the next generation and thinking about our state in the long haul. And I really believe with all my heart that core convictions in our leaders is what is important, especially in this, important moment in our history.
Lindsay James, bring us to a close. If someone hears what you're saying and wants to get involved, what's the best way to follow your work?
Yes, find me on all the socials, Lindsay for Iowa, Lindsay James for Iowa. You can find me on all the platforms, and please do come, reach out. Let me know if you want me to come to your area, have a conversation with you or a group of your friends. I'm very much so a person who is committed to listening and to leading out of those core convictions. And so give me a call, send me an email. I'd love to come by.
That was Lindsay James, a member of the Iowa House representing Dubuque. She is in the Democratic Party primary for Iowa's 2nd Congressional District in 2026. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you.
That was Lindsay James, a member of the Iowa House representing Dubuque. She is in the Democratic Party's primary to take on U.S. Representative Ashley Hinson in 2026. And with that, that was another episode of Cornhole Champions. If you like the show, here's some things you can do to support. 1, go subscribe to our show's home at youtube.com at Iowa Starting Line. It's a great place to grow our platform. It's a consistent place to show that growth. Come help us bring this work to more people, get in front of more eyes. And then get my newsletter and get these episodes straight to your email every Wednesday morning that they come out. That's at cornholechampions.substack.com. 3, to catch up on the work we've been doing here at Iowa Starting Line, follow us at Starting Line's Instagram and TikTok. And then 4, sign up for Iowa Starting Line's flagship newsletter at iowastartinglinecom.com/newsletter. And you can catch up on our cancer series, which Amy Rivers has been putting a lot of work in that newsletter. Cornhole Champions is a weekly podcast powered by Iowa Starting Line. The podcast is produced by me and edited by Rebecca Steinberg. Our music is by Avery Mossman, and our show art is by Desiree Tapia. Cornhole Champions is a proud member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. We'll see you with a new episode next Wednesday. Until then, I'm Zachary Oren Smith.
I'm Amy Rivers.
Thanks for listening. God, the way they call it Newsheimers, right? It's when you write a story, you spend
and then immediately forget it.
Exactly.
It's called Newsheimers?
I've heard it called Newsheimers. I won't say who gave me that one in case they get them canceled.
No, I have that for sure.